question that was asked to the global audience was, washing my hands with soap after going to the toilet is something I automatically do. So it's about soap. It's
in other
also
words,
about
a reflex.
That's correct, yes. As a habit.
As a habit. So which countries do you find appear as the highest, and which countries appear on the bottom of this reflex to wash hands immediately after using toilet?
So if I recall correctly, the highest frequency reported was in Saudi Arabia, where about 97% people said they did it as a reflex. 97% agreed, and another 1% said that they are somewhat agreed.
Which are the other 4 top countries?
So the rest of the list is interesting because it covers a large geography. So it seems to be not related to geography, because the second in the list is India, the third is Bosnia, the fourth is Algeria, and then Turkey. So we span most of the world.
I see, but interestingly, the Mediterranean appears to be common.
That's correct. Yes.
Between Turkey and Bosnia and Algeria, these 3 countries in that region, Saudi Arabia and India, and they reflect both Muslim societies and a Hindu society. And which countries are at the bottom?
In general, the East Asian countries seem to have reported less number. The lowest number that's reported in this global poll is from China, where only 23% people said that they wash their hands as a reflex, and they agreed to that. The second lowest is Japan, with 30%, and the third lowest is Netherlands, which is the highest in the European context. So 39% said that they agreed that they washed their hands as a reflex, followed by Korea and by Thailand.
So in this list, 4 of them are East Asian countries.
That's correct.
China, Japan, Korea, and Thailand. And only 1 is a West European country, Netherlands. So even though we were saying that geography may not matter, but there seems to be a geographic bias in this. There also seems to be 2 countries with highly religious guidance for daily washing. In Islam, one of the basic guidelines is to wake up and do wudu in the morning, early in the morning, which requires washing hands several times, and then during the day, after a few hours break, another 4 times at least. And in Hinduism, the guidelines for a Brahmin family is to have 3 washings a day. 1 in the morning, almost bathing 3 times a day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the midday, and 1 before sleeping, which is slightly optional. So this religious guideline might also have an influence. This does not mean that Christianity does not have an influence, the 3rd largest among the top 3 religions. Influence, but I did find
interestingly across the world, among people who identified themselves as Christians, the reported percentage is actually 78%, which is higher than the global average.
Right, right. And what is the response of those, which is also a substantial number, who say they have no religion?
So interestingly, among the different religious denominations in which we categorize non-religion as a religion as itself, the lowest reported percentage of people who do hand washing as an instinct. It's the lowest is among those people who don't who say they have no religion. So 66%, which is lower than the global average as well.
So it's hard to reach a conclusion on basis of such data, but it does suggest that religions have been a great source for teaching hygiene. So one might think that the religion of no religion probably has no guideline for how to spend the daily life, whereas other religions are quite strong on suggesting and building up a reflex from a very young age. So rational behavior may be somewhat flawed on this matter, and a reflexive behavior such as the ones which are inculcated at a young age through religious instruction might be more central to building a reflex such as the need to wash hands.
That is correct. Interestingly, if you look at the other demographics that matter, there is almost an 11% higher frequency of hand washing reported by women as compared to men. So about 82% of women say report hand washing, whereas only 71%, so a stark 11% difference.
How would you explain this? Does it have anything to do with workplace?
So we didn't ask a question about that, but one can surmise from, and I can speculate some of the reasons. One of them could be that men work generally outside far more than women across the world. So it could be that men are in situations where the availability of soaps, availability of water, availability of time to do all of these things is lower, and therefore they are generally not reporting that high.
That raises would you have data on women who go out to work and women who do not go out to work?
That's an interesting angle to look at. We haven't done that, but it's definitely worth seeing.
Imagine your data,
it does certainly
as
have
I recall,
that. That's correct.
Does have employment status.
That's correct, yes.
So since you have 60,000 respondents across the world, I'm sure there's a sizable number of women who are in the workforce and another sizable number who are not in the workforce or going out to work.
Another interesting demographic that the results show is with age the habit of hand washing increases.
I see.
What would be your interpretation of that?
I guess one may be the availability of time.
That's correct.
And the other might be becoming more serious about life. I don't know. You're closer to a youth than me who's beyond it. But that could be.
That could be. But it's a significant finding. So we classify young as people who are under the age of 34, people who are mature between 35 to 54, and old as 55 plus. So the old has about 81% and the young has 71%. So it's a statistically significant 10% difference.
That's a huge 10 percentage points is a very large difference. So this means gender and age.
They make a difference, but income and education seems to be making very little difference.
Interestingly, one would have thought that if you were high income and had greater access to tap water, that you would be more inclined for hand washing. But that does not seem to make a difference. One also thinks that with all the education on hygiene in schools and universities, that education would have made a difference. But you're suggesting
that's correct. So the results kind of tune well with the emerging literature, which suggests that too much education is not something that's always useful. So people behave under habits, and those habits do not necessarily get cultivated by being just exposed to information. So education is generally being informed about something, but habits are rare to change just with information. They change with the environment being changed.
Would you say that it also has to do with our approach to education, which is focused on teaching skills rather than skills of life, or grooming, as sometimes
that's correct. And another
grooming comes from other sources.
That's correct.
such as family and religion, rather than from formal education, which focuses on teaching skills to work, not skills to live a healthy life. Would you?
But it certainly is something that's intriguing and worth exploring further.
And that rational education might be less suitable to instruction in living a good life, and what is beyond rational ways of instruction might be more instrumental on guidelines to lead a good life.
That's correct, and I think the findings certainly suggest a more thorough and systematic thinking of why this may be happening. The current global survey was far more geared towards understanding what was happening,
Right.
And studies across the world on other sanitation issues have also pointed out supply side problems, in the sense of washrooms being not available across the world, or soaps being not readily available, or people behaving in certain manners in certain environments. So
Right.
changing the environment may be far more productive in terms of changing behavior, rather than being made aware of or informed about certain things.
Right.
So these are habits that need to be changed. So we change how the washrooms look, rather than informing people that hand washing is an important thing. But it's definitely worth exploring further.
That would affect the demand side in addition to the supply side. So
That's
the
correct.
supply side alone cannot solve the problem.
That's correct. And I mean, we have to create better choice sets for people, so that they make better judgments on hand washing.
Right.
With this conversation, we look forward to exploring the data further, and if you have any queries, please do get back to us.